The room smelled of old coffee and newer arrogance. 5 Chinese technology analysts sat behind a polished table in a Shanghai broadcast studio, their smiles sharp as broken glass. The topic was India's future in innovation. The lead analyst, a man named Chun with silver spectacles and a softer belly, leaned into his microphone and delivered a line that would travel across oceans. India cannot innovate, he said, clicking a pen for emphasis. They have brilliant managers, yes, wonderful service workers. But true invention, the kind that changes the world, that requires a culture of failure, of wild thinking. India only knows how to follow orders. The other 4 analysts nodded like a row of pigeons on a wire. One of them laughed, a short, ugly sound. Another added, they produce engineers who fix your software bugs, not engineers who build the future. The segment ended. The video was clipped, captioned, and shared. Within hours, it had 3 million views. In a cramped hostel room in Pune, India, an 18-year-old named Arjun Deshmukh watched the clip on his cracked smartphone. His roommate, Vikram, was asleep on the bottom bunk, snoring softly. The screen's blue light painted Arjun's face like a bruise. He watched Chen's lips form the words again. India cannot innovate. Arjun's thumb hovered over the screen. He did not cry. He did not type an angry comment. He put the phone down, lay back on his thin mattress, and stared at the water stain on the ceiling that looked like a map of a country that did not exist. Then he whispered to the dark, I will show you. Arjun was not a prodigy. He had failed his math exams twice before passing. His father drove a vegetable cart through the narrow lanes of their neighborhood, and his mother stitched beads onto wedding dresses for 14 hours a day. They had sold their only gold bangles to pay for his engineering entrance exam fees. When he told them he wanted to build something new, not just study for a job, his father had laughed. Not a cruel laugh, a tired one. Beta, first get a job, then build your stars. But Arjun could not let go of the image in his head. For 3 years, he had been scribbling circuits in the margins of his notebooks. A device, a small, portable machine that could diagnose lung disease from a person's breath. In India, where the air was thick with dust and smoke, millions suffered from chronic pulmonary illnesses. The tests were expensive and required big hospitals. Arjun wanted to build a sensor so sensitive, so cheap, that a village health worker could hold it to a patient's mouth and get an answer in 30 seconds. The idea was not new, but the execution, the specific arrangement of nanomaterials, the signal processing algorithm, that was his secret. He had no lab, no funding, no mentor. He had a soldering iron he bought from a scrap market, a laptop that took 7 minutes to turn on, and a rage that burned like a pilot light. The next morning, Arjun woke Vikram by shaking his shoulder. Vikram was a year older, built like a wrestler, with a laugh that filled hallways. He was studying mechanical engineering, but spent most of his time fixing motorcycles for extra money. I need your help, Arjun said. Vikram rubbed his eyes. It's 6 in the morning. I'm going to build something that will make those Chinese analysts eat their words. Vikram sat up. He knew Arjun well enough to know when he was joking. This was not one of those times. What do you need? A workshop and a way to get nanomaterials without a credit card. Vikram grinned. I know a guy. That guy was an old physics professor named Dr. Nair, who had been fired from a university for publishing a paper that embarrassed the administration. He now ran a small, dusty lab behind a tea stall. The lab had one functioning microscope, a fume hood that worked only when you hit on the side, and shelves full of glassware stained brown from years of use. Dr. Nair was bald, chain-smoked beatus, and spoke in a whisper because his vocal cords had been damaged by a chemical burn. When Arjun showed him the sketches, the old man stared for a full minute. Then he whispered, the sensor geometry. Where did you learn it? I didn't, Arjun said. I imagined it. Dr. Nair lit a beady. You have 3 months. Then I sell this place to Chaiwala. That was the beginning, the long middle, the failures, the nights of cry into his pillow, the money running out. His father calling to say the card had been seized by municipal police. His mother's quiet sobs on the phone. Vikram selling his motorcycle for parts to buy more nanomaterials. the first prototype exploding and burning Arjun's eyebrows off, the second prototype giving false readings, the third prototype catching fire, Dr. Nair coughing blood into a handkerchief and still showing up the next day. That is a story for another hour. But the boy did not stop, because every time he wanted to quit, he heard Chen's voice. India cannot innovate. He built a fourth prototype, then a fifth, then a seventh. The seventh prototype did not catch fire. That was the first miracle. It sat on the workbench like a small gray brick, no bigger than a deck of cards, with a tiny LED screen and a mouthpiece that looked like a breathalyzer. Arjun had soldered every connection himself, had written every line of code in the algorithm that would analyze the volatile organic compounds in human breath. The theory was simple. Diseased lungs produced a different chemical signature than healthy ones. The execution was hell. For 47 days, he had slept in 2-hour bursts. His eyes had developed a permanent twitch. His fingers were scarred from burns. But on the 48th day, he held the device in his palm and felt it vibrate softly when he powered it on. Vikram stood behind him, arms crossed. Dr. Nair sat on a stool, a beady unlit between his fingers for once. "Test it," the old man whispered. Arjun looked at them. "On who?" "On me," Vikram said. "I've been smoking cheap cigarettes since I was 14. If your device can't find something wrong with my lungs, it's useless." Arjun hesitated. The device had never been tested on a human, only on synthetic gas mixtures he had prepared in the lab. If it gave a false reading, it could mean months more of work, months he did not have. His father's vegetable cart was gone. His mother had taken a loan from a moneylender at 20% interest. The lab's rent was due in 2 weeks. And somewhere in Shanghai, Chun was probably recording another segment. "Do it," Arjun said. Vikram blew into the mouthpiece for 10 seconds. The device made a sound like a soft chime. Then the screen lit up with 3 lines of text. SpO2 estimate, 91%. Inflammation markers, elevated. Probable chronic bronchitis. Vikram stared at the screen. Then he laughed. "I told you, those cigarettes." But Dr. Nair was not laughing. He took the device from Arjun's hands and held it up to the light. "This is not just a sensor," he whispered. "This is a diagnostic laboratory smaller than a mouse. The algorithm you wrote, it's not just comparing compounds. It's learning, adapting." He set the device down carefully, as if it were made of glass. "Arjun, do you understand what you have built?" Arjun did not answer, because his phone was ringing. It was his mother. He stepped outside the lab, into the noise of the tea stall and the honking rickshaws. "Beta," she said. Her voice was strange. "Flat, your father has collapsed. They took him to the hospital, the government hospital." Arjun's legs went numb. "What happened?" "His heart. The doctor says he needs a stent. It costs 2 lakh rupees. We don't have 2 lakh rupees. 2 lakh rupees. 200,000 rupees. About $2,400. A fortune for a vegetable seller. A fortune for a family that had sold its bangles." Arjun leaned against the wall of the tea stall. The tea seller, a fat man named Raju, looked at him and said nothing. He just poured a cup of chai and placed it in Arjun's hand. Arjun did not drink it. He stared at the cup. The steam rose and vanished, just like his father's life savings, just like his mother's hope. He went back inside the lab. Vikram saw his face and knew. "How much?" Vikram asked. 2 lakh. Vikram nodded slowly. He had already sold his motorcycle. He had nothing left except his textbooks and a worn-out pair of sneakers. Dr. Nair pulled a folded wad of cash from his pocket. 15,000 rupees. His entire savings from years of tutoring rich kids. "Take it," he whispered. Arjun shook his head. "I can't take your money. You need it for the lab." "The lab is already dead," Dr. Nair said. "This device is the only living thing in it." That night, Arjun sat alone in the lab. The device was on the workbench. His father was in a hospital bed, struggling to breathe, and somewhere in the digital world, a video was still circulating. India cannot innovate. Arjun opened his laptop. He searched for medical device companies in India. He found 20. He emailed every single one with a description of his invention and a request for funding. He attached his circuit diagrams, his algorithm notes, his test results. Then he waited. An hour passed. 2 hours. 3. One reply came. It was an automated out-of-office message. Another came. Thank you for your interest. We will review your submission. The rest were silence. Arjun closed his laptop. He put his head on the workbench next to the device. He did not cry. He was too tired to cry. But something else happened. A thought. A terrible, dangerous thought. What if he was wrong? What if the device was worthless? What if Chun was right? What if Indians really couldn't innovate? What if all his suffering, all his burns, all his sleepless nights had produced nothing but a fancy brick that would be forgotten in a drawer? He lifted his head. He looked at the device. And then he did something he had never done before. He prayed, not to a specific god, not with any ritual. He just whispered into the dark, "Please, let this be real. Let me save him." He did not know that across the city, in a hospital room, a nurse would check his father's vitals and find them weakening. He did not know that his mother would sign papers for a loan she could never repay. He did not know that Vikram was at that moment walking to a pawn shop with his textbooks under his arm. But he also did not know that one of those 20 emails had been forwarded to a man named Sanjay Mehta, the founder of a small medical tech startup in Bangalore. Sanjay could not sleep that night. He was reading emails on his phone. At 2 a.m., he opened Arjun's attachment. He stared at the circuit diagrams. Then he called his partner. "Wake up," he said. "I think I just found the future." The next morning, Arjun's phone rang at 6:17 a.m. He had not slept. He answered with a croak. "Hello." A man's voice, crisp and fast. "Arjun Deshmukh? This is Sanjay Mehta. I run a company called Ether Diagnostics. I saw your email. I want to fly to Pune today. Can you show me the device?" Arjun sat up so fast he knocked over a cup of cold coffee. Yes, I can show you." "Good. And Arjun?" "Yes." "Bring your father's hospital bills." Sanjay Mehta arrived at the lab at 2:47 p.m. He was not what Arjun expected. No suit, no driver, no arrogance. He was a thin man in a wrinkled blue shirt, carrying a backpack that looked older than Arjun. He had the eyes of someone who had not slept properly in years, the same eyes Arjun saw in the mirror. Dr. Nair was not there. He had been admitted to a charity hospital the night before, coughing blood into a towel. Vikram stood in the corner, wearing his last clean shirt, the one he saved for job interviews. The lab smelled of solder smoke and fear. Sanjay walked to the workbench without saying hello. He picked up the device. He turned it over in his hands. He held it to his ear and listened. Then he put his mouth on the mouthpiece and blew. The LED screen flickered. Numbers appeared. SpO2 estimate, 98%. Inflammation markers, none detected. Lung health, normal. Sanjay set the device down. He looked at Arjun. "How many people have you tested?" "Only one," Arjun admitted. "My friend Vikram. He has chronic bronchitis from smoking." Sanjay nodded. "Test me again." 3 times. Arjun ran the test 3 times. Same result each time. Normal lungs. Sanjay then pulled a sealed envelope from his backpack. "I had a full pulmonary workup at a hospital last week. I have mild asthma. Your device didn't catch it." Arjun's heart stopped. For one full second, the world went silent. Then Sanjay smiled. It was a small, tired smile. "I'm lying. I don't have asthma. My lungs are fine. Your device was right. I just want to see if you would panic." Arjun wanted to punch him. He also wanted to hug him. He did neither. He stood frozen, his hands shaking. Vikram let out a breath, so loud it sounded like a tire deflating. Sanjay pulled a checkbook from his backpack. "I'm offering you 50 lakh rupees for 50% of the patent and a job at Ether Diagnostics. You will be the chief technology officer. You will be 20 years old, and you will have a salary that will make your mother cry." He wrote the check. 5 million rupees. 50 lakh. Enough for his father's stent. Enough to pay off the moneylender. Enough to rent a real lab. Enough to change everything. Arjun looked at the check. Then he looked at the device. Then he thought of Chun. He thought of the broadcast studio in Shanghai. He thought of the laugh. The short, ugly laugh. He picked up the check. "No," he said. Sanjay's smile vanished. "No, no," Arjun repeated. "I will not sell you 50%. I will license the technology to you. 10% royalties. And Ether Diagnostics will manufacture it at cost for government hospitals in India. No profit on those units." Sanjay stared at him. For a long moment, no one spoke. The tea stall outside was loud. A dog was barking. A child was crying. Then Sanjay laughed. Not the ugly laugh of the Chinese analyst. A real laugh. A surprised, delighted, almost painful laugh. "You are 20 years old. You have nothing. Your father is in a hospital bed. And you are negotiating with me like a shark." Arjun did not blink. "My father sold vegetables for 30 years. He never once accepted the first price. I learned from him." Sanjay put the checkbook away. He extended his hand. 10%. Manufacturing at cost for government hospitals. "And one more thing." "What?" "I want to meet your father." Arjun's father was awake when they reached the hospital. The room was crowded with other patients. 6 beds and a space meant for 4. The smell was antiseptic and urine. Arjun's mother sat on a plastic stool, her beads stitching in her lap, because she could not stop working even now. When she saw Sanjay, she stood up quickly, wiping her hands on her sari. Sanjay bent down and touched her feet, an old Indian gesture of respect. She started crying. Arjun's father tried to sit up. His face was gray, his lips cracked, his chest wrapped in monitoring wires. But his eyes were alive. He looked at Arjun. "Beta, did you sell the device?" "No, Papa. I licensed it. On good terms." His father nodded slowly. "Good. Never sell the cow. Sell the milk." Sanjay pulled out the check. He handed it to Arjun's mother. "For the stent, for the loan, for everything." She looked at the number. Then she looked at Sanjay. Then she looked at Arjun. And she did something Arjun had never seen her do. She smiled. Not a tired smile. Not a polite smile. A real, wide, tears streaming down her face smile. She grabbed Arjun's face in both her hands and pressed her forehead to his. "My son," she whispered. "My brilliant son." Vikram, standing in the doorway, wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. He pretended it was dust. 3 months later, the device had a name, Swaz. It meant breath in Sanskrit. It had passed clinical trials at 3 government hospitals. It had diagnosed 237 cases of tuberculosis that had been missed by conventional tests. It had saved 17 children who would have died waiting for lab results. And it had caught the attention of the world. A journalist from Reuters came to Pune. She wrote a story headlined, "The Boy Who Didn't Listen." The story went viral. It was translated into Mandarin. And one morning, Arjun received an email. The subject line was blank. The sender was a news producer from Shanghai television. The message said, "Mr. Chen would like to interview you. He wants to apologize on air." Arjun read the email 3 times. Then he called Vikram. "They want me to come to Shanghai." Vikram was quiet for a moment. "Are you going?" "Yes." "Why?" "To rub it in his face." Arjun looked at the device on his desk. The little gray brick that had cost him his eyebrows, his sleep, his peace. "No," he said, to show him what India made. The Shanghai studio was exactly as Arjun had imagined it. The same polished table, the same bright lights, the same 5 chairs. But only one of them was occupied. Chin sat alone. He was smaller than he looked on video. His silver spectacles needed cleaning. His hands were folded on the table like a schoolboy waiting for punishment. Arjun walked in wearing a simple white kurta. No suit, no arrogance. He carried the Swaz device in a leather pouch his mother had stitched for him. The producer counted down from 5. A red light blinked on. Chin looked into the camera. Then he looked at Arjun. "Mr. Deshmukh," he said. His voice was steady but soft. "I said something cruel and stupid 2 years ago. I said India cannot innovate. I was wrong. I am sorry." He stood up. He bowed. A full, formal Chinese bow. Arjun said nothing for a long moment. The camera held on his face. Then he reached into the pouch and placed the Schwarz device on the table between them. This device was built in a lab behind a tea stall, he said. The soldering iron came from a scrap market. The laptop was cracked. The mentor was a sick old man who whispered because chemicals had burned his throat. The friend sold his motorcycle for parts. The mother stitched beads for 14 hours a day. The father drove a vegetable cart until his heart gave out. He paused. India did not build this device because India has better labs or more money. India built this device because India has people who refuse to stop. That is not a culture of following orders. That is a culture of surviving the impossible. Chin nodded. His eyes were wet behind his spectacles. Arjun picked up the device and held it to the camera. This is Schwarz. It means breath, and it is only the beginning. The segment ended. The red light went off. The producer was crying. The sound guy was crying. Chun extended his hand. Arjun shook it. And somewhere in Pune, in a hospital bed, Dr. Nair watched the broadcast on a tiny TV mounted to the wall. He could not speak above a whisper anymore, but he did not need to. He smiled. Then he closed his eyes, and he let out his last breath, a peaceful one, the kind the device had been built to protect. That night, Arjun flew back to Pune. He went straight to the hospital. Dr. Nair's body had already been taken to the morgue, but his bed was still there. The sheets were rumpled. The tiny TV was still on, playing static. Arjun sat on the edge of the bed. He pulled out the Schwarz device. He held it to his own mouth. He blew. The screen lit up. Breath detected. Lungs clear. All is well. He set the device on the pillow. Then he lay down on the bed where the old man had died. He did not cry. He stared at the ceiling. There was a water stain there, too. This one looked like a bird taking flight. Vikram found him an hour later. He did not say anything. He just sat on the floor beside the bed and leaned his head against the mattress. The two friends stayed like that until the morning nurses came. Arjun never became rich. He never moved to America. He stayed in Pune. He turned the lab behind the tea stall into a research center. He named it the Nair Institute for Affordable Medical Devices. Vikram became the head of operations. Arjun's father got a stent and lived another 12 years. Arjun's mother finally stopped stitching beads. She spent her days gardening and telling everyone who would listen about her son. And Chen retired from television. He started a small foundation that funded young inventors in developing countries. He and Arjun never became friends, but they respected each other, because that is what happens when one man admits he was wrong and another man proves him wrong without hatred. Years later, a young Indian student asked Arjun what it felt like to prove the Chinese analysts wrong. Arjun thought for a long time. Then he said, "It felt like breathing, after holding your breath for too long. That's all, just relief." He picked up the Schwarz device. It still worked. It still had the original circuit board, the one he had soldered by hand, in a dusty lab behind a tea stall. He held it to his mouth one last time. He blew. The screen lit up. Breath detected. Lungs clear. All is well. He smiled. Then he put the device in his pocket and walked out into the Pune sun.